one of the big issues is that, for the Jewish people that did go to Israel, Israel is a promise of safety, a
Yeah.
land that
Yeah.
you go to escape the horrors of what happened wherever you may have come from,
A
the
refuge.
land of the Jewish people.
Yeah, we're refuge.
When Hamas initiated that attack on the homeland, on the kibbutz, on the communities, at the festival, and that safety felt like it had been broken. Many of us here in the United States don't really know other than what we see on the news, and many of us aren't even reading the stories coming out of the Middle East, of the expansion of the war in the Middle East, not just Israel, but how our troops are being targeted as well. The enemy has their say. I've said this before. The enemy has their say. It's something my husband always used to say to me, even when I was in the war zone. No matter how you feel, no matter how much you wish nothing bad will happen, the enemy has their say. And you should believe what they are saying and not pretend, not stick your head in the ground, actually believe it. When Iran calls us the greatest Satan, when Iran says the little Satan is Israel, when Iran backs proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah and other proxy terrorist organizations throughout the world to target not only Israelis, but us, Americans, Westerners, they are telling you exactly what they are. When our government, which right now is filled with a bunch of imbeciles like President Biden and his crazy little staff, believes that they can have a JCPOA, a negotiation with Iran, when President Obama, held out the olive branch to a monster like Assad, President Assad, when he first came into office, when he drew a red line and then failed to even hold Assad accountable for using chemical weapons against his own people. The world was already watching. Our enemies were watching us. Our enemies were calculating. When Iran takes its own young people and executes them in the street or gives them lashes, the young girls' lashes, for basically taking off their hijabs, and we sit by and do nothing but negotiate with them, what are we saying? I know there's a lot of you out there. I know many of you, we are sick of wars. We are sick of them. Many of you never even been to a war zone, right? But you're sick of wars. I hear people talk about it all the time. I'm sick of war. I'm sick of the wars. I'm really sick of the wars. I spent 8 years covering the war, and even a little bit more here and there on the battlefields of Mexico and the United States. I call that the battlefield of the cartels. I'm sick of war. My husband really is sick of war. He has to live with it every day. He lost his eyes. He's really sick of war. But guess what? Just because you're sick of it doesn't mean you're not going to be in it. It doesn't mean the enemy isn't surrounding us. It doesn't mean China is not preparing to do something unexpected. They're our adversary, and they've purchased land in the United States, and they have purchased it around our military installations. And we've seen what's happened to our ally Israel, October 7th, Hamas fully loaded and ready to go, right? On October 7th, all of those monsters prepared to enter kibbutz and other areas and the festival with innocent families and to tear them apart as if they were nothing more, not even less than an animal. These demons. Well, guess what? They don't feel that way just about the Israelis. Their hate for the Jewish people is the same hate these extremist organizations and Iran has for you. And if you would have been in the kibbutz, no matter how many times you would have said, oh, but I love the Palestinians. I want to go and give them, charitable gifts. And I want to get out there and do whatever I can to help you. Why are you going to hurt me? They wouldn't have cared one bit. They would have torn you apart just as they did the innocent Jewish people. And I believe they still will. I have a special guest on the show today. And I plan on visiting Israel very soon. And this guest is somebody that can lay it out for you and tell you exactly why Israel is a lesson for all of us. And I believe our failure after September 11th is going to bring back something so horrific, a backlash so unexpected. But none of us will be able to say, oh, I didn't really expect that. Nobody in the government will be able to hide their heads in the sand and pretend like they didn't know it was coming, because every single day, our enemies tell us that they are coming after us. Folks, we are already at war. They're just not telling you that. And for all of you out there who are like, well, we're just not going to get involved, you will not have a choice, because the enemy has their say. On today's show, I have Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, to discuss all of this and so much more with us. She is Israel's special envoy for innovation and will share her personal story of life in Israel over the past 3 months, the possibility of the war spreading beyond Israel and Gaza, and so much more. But first, I want to say, hey, Happy New Year, Mike Lindell. Happy New Year to you. And you're still holding some of the biggest sales of the year. Really excited. Get that Giza Dream bed sheets for now $29.98. As low as $29.98. You can't beat that. And a set of pillowcases, only $9.98. Crazy, crazy great prices. Rejuvenate your bed with the MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. And don't forget, get your dogs, get your whatever dogs, your little Maisies and Picololas like I have, get them a MyPillow doggy bed. They will love it. Visit mypillow.com/Carter and enter code CARTER at checkout for big discounts, including the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98. Go to mypillow.com/Carter, code Carter. That's CARTER, mypillow.com/Carter, code Carter, or call 1-800-685-7221. I'm so grateful to have Fleur Hassan-Nahoum here on the Sarah Carter Show. She's a member of the Jerusalem Municipal Council and was appointed Deputy Mayor for Foreign Affairs and Economic Development and Tourism. Fleur is also the co-founder of the UAE Israel Business Council and the Gulf Israel Women's Forum. You were involved in the Abraham Accords since September 2023. You have been serving as Israel's special envoy for innovation. And you were just here, Fleur. You were just here in Austin, and I missed you. I can't believe it.
What a shame. I didn't know you, and shame somebody didn't introduce us before, because I think we would have had a good time in Austin together.
I know. I think we would have had a great time. There's great restaurants in Austin.
Yes.
No matter what anyone says, Austin, yes, is weird, but it's a great place to be. I live in between Austin and San Antonio, Florida. So I live in an area known as Hill Country, and it reminds me so much the terrain here of Israel. When I was in Israel last year, a few months before the horrific October 7th attacks by those monsters, I remember looking out at the landscape and thinking to myself, what a spectacular nation. What a beautiful country. And then I was talking to Israelis who had been there from the very beginnings, who talked about what it was like when they were rebuilding the land and the terrain, and how, it was desolate. Some areas were just desolate.
There was nothing there except for swamps and desert.
Let's talk about that, because I want people to understand this.
Yeah.
When the big exodus came after the 1940s, after the Holocaust, that first giant wave. I mean, when the Jewish people returned and when the land of Israel was given back to the Jewish people, it was it was desolate. There was nothing there. There were some camels. There weren't any agricultural fields. It was really a dump. You're
Well,
right.
let me take you back a little bit before even the state of Israel, towards the end of the 19th century, right? So 18 something, the last
Right.
half of 18 something. The Jews decided, because we were being sort of kicked around from so many different places, so there was a wave of immigration, and Israel at the time was, or Palestine as it was called then, was under the Ottomans. The Ottomans eventually evolved into the Turks, but the Ottomans had a big empire, and that's when the Jews came. Now, there was very few people in this stretch of land, and when the Jews came, of course, they bring commerce, and they started to bring a small economy that they started to grow, and they started to work the land. And that's when a lot of the different Arab tribes from around the country, from Syria mainly, and from Egypt, started
Jordan.
coming into Israel. And so it was the fact that the Jews came towards the end of the 19th century that people started to come, because they saw that there was some action going on. Before that, there was really nothing. By the time the state was built, by the time the state was created in 48, there were already kibbutzes, which were communes, in
Right.
order to work the land. So things were already going, but it's because we'd been working at it for 70 years in the understanding that we were going to get this land back. That's what we were working towards.
That's interesting. My friend Michelle, I'm sure she's listening. She said she was going to listen to this podcast, especially if she wanted to hear you. I was in a kibbutz in northern Israel, and this was way back when. I'm not going to date you, Michelle, but way back when. And when we went back to Israel, and when she went back, we were together on this trip last year, and she looked at the area where she had been as a young woman, and she was just like, "This is miraculous." She
Yeah.
said, "Sarah, let me show you some pictures. This is what it was like for us on the border of Lebanon back then.
Yeah.
Look at it now. It's like it was forest. It was beautiful. There was agriculture. And that takes a lot of effort. You're part of moving Israel forward as far as business and economy. And that is not something that just happens. It's not like you just ended up in the most fertile land in the world and
No,
everything's just perfect. You're up against
we ended up in the only country in the Middle East without oil, so that tells you where we were. So we ended up there.
and everyone's fighting for it.
Exactly. Israel built everything. We literally made the deserts bloom. We found a way of doing agriculture. We kind of invented agri-tech. People talk about agricultural technology. And the reason why is because necessity is the mother of invention, because we didn't have
Correct.
any neighbors to trade with. We didn't have people to trade fruit and vegetables with. So we had to become food self-sufficient and water self-sufficient. And that's what we did, because we had no choice. And that's how the country grew. And throughout all of that, we were fighting with one hand, because from the very first moment we became a state, all the neighboring Arab countries came and invaded us in order to commit the second Jewish genocide in a decade. We'd just come out of the Holocaust. That was their intention. And miraculously, they lost that war. That was 48. And on the other hand,
Yep.
we're building. So we're building with one hand and we're fighting with the other. That's what we've been doing.
And you've been doing that ever since. And
Yeah.
let's move forward, fast forward, in the wake of the October 7th attacks. I mean, it has been such a struggle for Israel, I can imagine, to watch what has happened across the globe with the rise of, I'm going to say it again, anti-Jewish, Jewish hatred. I don't like to say anti-Semitism because I'm afraid that just gets lost in the weeds
You're right.
of some kind of academia. And
Yeah.
this is not about academia. This is about human lives. These are about children and women and families that were brutally murdered without any provocation. Not that there ever would be, but without any provocation by Hamas, which intends and wants to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. How has this first affected you personally? And, and especially, let's just start there. How has this affected you personally?
Well, I'm. It depends what day you ask me, Sarah. Honestly, there are some days. First of all, in the first week, I think the whole country was in shock and trauma and disbelief. Like, how could this have happened? Really, how could this have happened? Um, we've had very bad moments. I've got a friend whose son is a hostage. They're American, also, actually, and so it's up and down. It's been really. I think it's the hardest thing that I've ever been through, and I think it's the hardest thing the country's ever been through in its history. Because even though, as I said earlier, we've had many wars, none of them we started, but we won all of them. And we've had many, many wars, and we've had a lot of combatants killed. But this is the war where most civilians have been killed and in such a brutal way, and they're still being brutalized. The hostages are still being brutalized in Gaza. And this is unprecedented. We're in uncharted territories, I dare say, and not in magnitude, of course, but this is our own mini Holocaust. That's what we're going through right now. And then you ask me the question, we look around and we see the whole world with pitchforks saying death to the Jews. It's almost unbelievable, and yet it's deja vu.
It is. And I'm still in a state of shock. Last night I got on a plane. I was traveling very late, a lot of delayed flights. I've been wearing these dog tags, bring them home now. Oh, you have it too. Yay. And I said, I'm not taking this off until every hostage is returned. And I don't care who wants to confront me or come at me. It means nothing to me because I know I'm standing on the side of righteousness and good. And I believe in standing up for our Jewish brothers and sisters and our allies in Israel. But I was standing in line, and there was a group of young people right in front of me at the gate, and they were all wearing Palestinian flags in their hair and shirts, Free Palestine, and it was like maybe 12 of them. And I thought to myself, where is everybody else wearing this, their dog
Well,
tags or
Sarah,
shirts?
last night you had the Golden Globes, right? So I was on Israeli
Right.
TV this morning, and the sign for the hostages is that little kind of yellow ribbon. Um, what was there? Three people wearing it, and half of Hollywood is Jewish. Where are they?
Where does what's going on there? I mean, we talk about it a lot. My friends and I, we talk about this a lot. This disconnect between the American Jewish, American Jewish groups or American Jewish people and Israel. Where is that disconnect?
That's a really good question. I think that America is a country where you can be as Jewish as you want and as American patriotic as you want, and that's not a contradiction, and that's a good thing, right? Europe has been slightly different in history, but what I think is that a lot of Jews. And I think that October 7th has woken a lot of people up, were very, very comfortable in their Americanness, and being Jewish was almost like a curious fact about me. Oh, I actually have Jewish heritage, right? It wasn't something that they were actually feeling in their gut. It wasn't like, these are my people, especially when the toxic woke culture has basically brainwashed everybody into believing that somehow Jewish people in our ancestral homeland are foreign white colonizers, because that is what the woke have brainwashed. And the clergy of the woke are the toxic academia that has basically reiterated this, that somehow in everything in the world, the original sin is white privilege. And somehow, even though Jews have been persecuted endlessly for 3,000 years, somehow we now fall into that white privilege category, which of course is ridiculous. And the whole thing's ridiculous to begin with. There's no merit anymore. It's all about oppression. And of course, successful people can never, ever be oppressed. So Jews are a
Right.
successful minority. Israel is a successful country. Nobody helped us. We got there on our own. We sacrificed on our own. Nobody helped Jews when they first got to America. They had to build everything on their own. But that doesn't matter, because now you're successful, which means you can never be the victim. And that is this toxic woke culture, which, by the way, spread across America, including in many Jewish communities, unfortunately.
Yeah, in Jewish communities, in communities all across the board, our children are facing like such detrimental harm to their mental health
Yeah.
because of this woke culture. We've seen a rise in suicides. We've seen people punishing themselves for things they've never done. I'm astonished at what has happened, but I think a lot of us were asleep at the wheel in America.
Yeah.
People were sending their children off to school, and I think a lot of parents, in order to protect their children, especially after the Holocaust, it took a while to be able to confront the horrors of what happened to the people. I can only imagine that were being held in concentration camps, that survived these harrowing experiences, and they come to America and they're just like, well, I'm not going to push anything on my children. I'm just going to, they're going to get an education,
But I think it's worse
and
than
they
that.
didn't teach them.
But I think it's worse than that. I agree with you about that. But I think in general in America, not just in Jewish communities, I think that when kind of the religion being the center of the family kind of broke down, no other moral framework came to replace it. And then there's no right and wrong.
Right.
It's your truth, my truth. How do you feel? There's no facts. So going back to October 7th, you have people denying it happened. Just like you have people denying the Holocaust happened. Just like you have people thinking that Osama bin Laden is somehow a figure to admire. The world's gone crazy.
It really has. You're absolutely right. The world has gone upside down on its head. Let me ask you this, and then we'll move on to, I think, your area of expertise, which I've not talked to anyone about, but business in Israel and tourism and what has happened since the attacks. Like, how is Israel handling this economically? If that's even an area that you're even thinking about yet. But one of the issues that and my friends, we were discussing this just this weekend in Florida. One of the big issues is that, for the Jewish people that did go to Israel, Israel is a promise of safety. A land that you go to escape the horrors of what happened wherever you may have come from. A land of the Jewish people.
Yeah, we're refuge.
When Hamas initiated that attack on the homeland, on the kibbutz, on the communities, at the festival, and that safety felt like it had been broken.
Totally. We felt very insecure.
How does the government handle that?
Well, that's exactly how we felt for a few days, for a few weeks. How could this have happened to us here in our own homeland? We created this homeland exactly so that none of this brutality would happen to Jews. And so this has been ongoing. And the truth is that at the moment, people are focusing on the war and people are focusing on trying to get the hostages back. And so the kind of rage against the government is going to happen, but it's not happening now because we can't afford to tear each other apart right now. And remember, we came into the 7th of October crisis very divided as a country. We've had a really bad year of terrible divisions because of our Supreme Court and judicial reform and all sorts of other things that we could get into, but not important. But the point is that we came into the war very divided. The war has united us, really united us. Soldiers are serving. Hamas is not asking who you voted for when they came to kill people. And so people are really uniting. Now, the day after the war, what will happen, I think, is that there will have to be some type of election because people are angry that the security forces somehow missed this. How could they have?
Right.
We're the most sophisticated army in the world, second to America. How could this have happened? And so I think that all will come out, but we can't afford for it to come out right now.
I think that's a really great answer. And I think that you're absolutely on the money when it comes to there's going to be a time for that, to face that. Right now is not that time because it's the nation that has to come first. Yeah. One of the big moneymakers in Israel is tourism. I mean, it's getting people there, large groups, religious groups. business, technology is huge in Israel. I mean, innovation is incredible. Israeli innovation. How is this crisis, this post October 7th situation where we're seeing, I don't even know how to describe
Yeah.
this rise in anti-Jewish hate. How is this affecting Israel and its people?
Well, I think that Israelis, for the first time, you see, Israelis don't really know what anti Semitism is because they are a majority in their homeland, right? I do
Right.
because I immigrated to Israel and I was a diaspora Jew and I know exactly what anti Semitism is and looks like, right? And so Israeli is very interesting because Israelis are shocked to see what's going around the world because they didn't really believe these was like stories their grandparents would tell them about, Nazi Germany. They don't, or Iraq or wherever people are coming from, or their grandparents came from. So Israelis, I think, have woken up to the fact that hey, people actually still hate Jews. So that's one big thing, and the other thing is really that I think they've realized now. I think a lot of Jews in the diaspora, as I said earlier, have woken up. They thought anti Semitism was a thing of the past. They thought anti Semitism was something their grandparents spoke about. They thought they lived in countries that were liberal and open minded and had completely absorbed them, and there would be no difference between this group or that group. I really think that this has been such a wake up call for so many Jewish communities from around the world that they're now scared. And what they've actually managed to do, Hamas, is wake up the Jewish spirit in so many people. We had a few
Right.
Hollywood people coming out and saying, I feel more like a Jew than I ever have. And that is something which eventually could be a good thing. But at the moment, it's out of a sense of attack. And it's just awful.
Yeah, I know. I saw that there was some backlash with one of the actors from Stranger Things, and he came out and he was just
Correct.
saying,
Yes, I interviewed him on
yeah,
my podcast, and he says, I've never felt
oh,
more Jewish.
that's so amazing. That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
That is what I think we need to be hearing is more of these stories, not the other side. Have you seen a with your law of return, meaning, and I tell me if I'm wrong, I have my notes right here, but on the 5th of July, 1950, it was a law that was put into place that gives Jews, people with one or more Jewish grandparents and their spouses the right to relocate in Israel
Yeah.
and acquire citizenship. Have we seen an increase at all
That's a
this
good question.
since post October 7th?
Well, I think there will be. Remember, it's a process. So you have to apply and you have to
Yeah, it takes like a year.
prove your heritage. Yes, and so apparently there've been a lot of inquiries and there've been a lot of open files in the different countries around the world where the Jewish Agency, which is the organization that is in charge of helping the immigration, there has been an uptake and there's been a lot of purchases of apartments in Tel Aviv. So I think a lot of American Jews are kind of buying their insurance policy just in case it goes really, really bad and they have to run away somewhere, which is always the Jewish paranoia, except that now we have a country. And so there is somewhere to run away to. It's horrible that we have to be thinking like this 75 years after the Holocaust. It's really horrible.
Well, it is pretty horrible. But they do have a reason to feel that way.
Absolutely.
I was in New York City covering I would say the
bridge,
pro
right?
Hamas.
Oh, it's been
Awesome. It was pro Hamas.
Totally.
It was not about anything else but pro Hamas because it was days after the attack. It was coordinated, well coordinated. I believe in, I don't have like actual evidence to prove this, but I've talked to US intel and other personnel that was saying like, look, Iran was planning this for more than 2 years with Hamas. So it's natural that they would plan a huge disinformation campaign to follow.
Absolutely.
And in the United States, we have a huge, huge population of, especially in Dearborn, Michigan, and so of Arabs that are anti-Israel, that have been very vocal about removing Israel off the face of the earth. I mean, that's got to be shocking. This is America, for crying out loud. I wasn't expecting to see that kind of hate in the streets of New York City.
Who would have thought that? But ultimately, I learned something a long time ago, and that is that Anti-Semitism is a mutating virus. And so it takes the shape of whatever ills or gripes or scapegoatism of the day, right? So 500 years ago it was
Right.
religious. So, Jews are Christ killers. And 100 years ago, it was all about race. And Hitler saw Jewish people as a subhuman species, as a subhuman race. And then when the world is against communists, Jews are the communists. When the world is against capitalists, Jews are the capitalists. And now, in this crazy kind of this post-colonial world, somehow we became the colonialists. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this precedent for this. And it always seems to sneak up on us. It's really incredible. And first of all, I have to say that just like you, Sarah, I've met so many great allies from outside the community as well as from inside the community that are standing firm, that have moral clarity. Because those people that are marching for Hamas, what are they marching for? Baby killers and rapists? Do they not understand that Hamas is actually bringing back the Palestinian cause rather than supporting the Palestinian cause? It's a mixture of ignorance and hatred. That's what it is.
Hey, certainly hatred and ignorance, you're right, but I think with the majority of people that I spoke to, they were old enough to know that killing a baby and mutilating children and mutilating adults is wrong. And if they don't know that it's wrong, and if they don't have moral clarity on that, then what kind of human being are they? I mean, it's always like we were talking about this last night. There's like, you could have one serial killer and everybody says, wow, that guy was crazy. He was a serial killer. He committed these atrocities. There were over 300 fighters that came in, and then all the people that supported them. I don't care if one or two of them were on drugs. That doesn't excuse anything that happened there. The behavior was something beyond what we can even understand is humanly possible. It was monstrous.
It was
depraved. It was monstrous.
It was depravity. It was monstrous. It was. I don't know what that was, and how they could do that, with joy. I mean, even the Nazis were like a little ashamed of what they were doing. They were hiding it from the world. These people came in with GoPros, and then people are saying that it didn't happen. It's just, people are saying yay for Hamas on the one hand, and it didn't happen on the other hand. They can't make
right. How has this affected Israel financially? Like, do you see I plan on going to Israel in the next few months.
Oh, good.
I believe it's important that we go, that we stand by. For those of you who have an opportunity to travel to Israel, you should. I believe that, if it's important that we stand by our allies and let them know that there are people in America that actually believe in them, will fight alongside them, and will do what is necessary to speak up for them. We have to have moral clarity. But do you see what's happening?
So basically,
thank you.
Tourism is completely frozen. So there's no tourists. And October 7th was a day where there was a ton of Jewish and Christian tourists because it was the Feast of Tabernacles. And I'd been with the Christian community a few days before in my role as deputy mayor, welcoming them to the city. And then everybody, of course, ran home. We're in the middle of a war. Now, but tourism actually is not the main part of our economic development. The main is essentially the innovation economy, the high tech, the technology. Now, the good news is, and I spoke to somebody today, an investor, that as a result of first, as you said, maybe solidarity, but also because Israelis really not just make great technology, but they deliver on their products. That, thank God, in the last couple of months, we've seen an uptake now of $1 to $2 billion in investment. The economy, our economy grows very fast. This year, we ended up with a 2% growth, which is like any normal economy around the world, but we expect more in Israel. But it's at least in the positive numbers, it's 2%. And so we're pretty resilient in many ways. And I think our economy is also resilient. Now, the main challenge we have at the moment is manpower, because a lot of our brightest are essentially fighting in the war in Gaza. They're there. A lot of these high-tech guys and top engineers and product managers and managers, and they're fighting. I mean, just to tell you, just to give you an example, Sarah, one of the actors in Fauda, I don't know whether you ever watch the show. I can't watch
I
it.
love the show.
Oh,
It was one of my favorite
well,
shows on Netflix.
one of the actors on Fauda, who's also a singer, went to war, and today he's been seriously injured. Idana Mehdi. So we pray for him to recover. I mean, imagine
Oh,
living in a
Lord.
country where the stars, the people who are famous, they go to war as well. So everybody's there, and so the economy needs hands on deck, and we don't have enough. On top of that, these savages, what they did was they also scared away a lot of our foreign workers in agriculture, and so we're a third of our agricultural workers down, and we didn't have people to pick fruits. But again, the country is so resilient and it rallies that you had busloads of school children coming to pick fruits because we had to make up for the hands that were missing from the people that went back to Thailand and other foreign workers from different Asian countries. And so those
I
are the
really
biggest
feel that
challenges.
that's what we're missing in America. I really feel, Fleur, that that's what we're missing in America, that we have, that something that I think is a blessing in Israel, that the people of Israel, the Israeli people have banded together, that they have put all of their efforts from the smallest child to the oldest soldier. I saw an old elderly man that had fought in like almost every war
Oh yeah,
go out with the young soldiers
they're
on the front
tough.
lines. I couldn't believe it.
They're tough as nails. I met a guy talking about one of these soldiers. He must be mid-70s. He fought on October 7th in 3 battles. Okay, 75. After the first battle, he had a cut on his leg, a gun shot on his leg. He went to the hospital. They sewed him up and they said, well, you have to stay till tomorrow. He said, no way. And he got out of the hospital with an injury that they just sewed up and went to fight 2 more battles. Who makes these people? They don't exist anymore.
They don't. I want to interview him. I want to go to Israel and find this man.
It was amazing.
I will go to the front lines.
You can't kill these people. They're amazing.
He is amazing. But that right there, these are the stories that people need to hear. These are the stories of hope, and as horrific and shocking. And still, I think it's shocking to my core. I'm sure it's more so for you. You're in Israel. You have friends who have, whose relatives are hostages, and you probably know a lot of people whose children are on the battlefield,
A lot.
and whose husbands are there.
Yeah.
But those stories of hope, I believe, are the seeds of Israel, right? From the very beginning.
Yeah, it's
From the very beginning, that no matter what happens.
It's the resilience of the Jewish people and it's the resilience of Israel. Resilience is basically how long it takes you to bounce back. Well, let me just tell you, it took 4 days to Israel to wake up from the shock and organize civil society. You've never seen something like this. They organized around the evacuees, clothes, baby diapers, formula, a free taxi service to take soldiers to the front line, to bring soldiers home for 24 hours, to take them back in, babysitting service for mothers whose husbands are on the front line, you name it. Everybody's thought about it. My friend who works in a museum created an art program for the evacuee kids. My friend who's a doctor set up a clinic. My friend who's a psychologist started trauma therapy. Everybody's doing something. And so there's a real strong sense of cohesion and resilience. And this is really the true character of the state of Israel. And I just wish we didn't have to be so tough, but unfortunately we do.
Now, I have one more question for you. I saw UN Ambassador Gilad Erdan here in San Antonio. He was speaking at a church, Cornerstone Church, and he made a statement that, left the audience really wondering and thinking. He's like, first they come after the Saturday people, and he repeated, and he said, and then they come after the Sunday people.
For sure.
United States is not immune to the hate in this Islamist extremism that we've seen in Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, the rise of these hateful organizations.
Well, they already
right?
came for
What is
you.
your lesson for
They already
us?
came for
What
you.
can we learn?
Well, they already came for you. You can tell. You can teach us something. 9/11. What was that? What had you
Right.
attacked anywhere? Had anybody done anything? 9/11. Right? Was it
And
provoked?
instead, we've opened
And,
our border.
and,
Fleur, instead, we've opened the border and said, come on in. We're not even doing background checks.
so
So, what's going on
so
here?
let's talk about what's
It's
really
like,
going on. What's really going on is that Iran is the Hitler of today. And nobody's really woken up to that. And just like the world at the beginning, Chamberlain from the UK and America didn't get involved, just like the world thought they could buy Hitler and his quiet and just buy it off for a little bit. It's not going to happen because Iran has bigger ambitions than Israel. It starts with Israel, but they want everything. They want to take this ideological. They want to take the world back 500 years. They want to create a jihadi fundamentalist world. They say it. Let's believe them. And so it only Gilad Erdan is 100% right. We're all infidels, you understand, to these
right.
extremes. Now, I have to say that I also have a lot of very moderate Muslim friends who also disassociate themselves from this craziness, this jihadi ideology. But so, if the world really wants to deal with what could be another world war, and it's been stated by Iran that they want to get America in the end as well, we should really be talking about regime change in Iran and not making deals with them. We have to be talking about
Absolutely.
the Iranian people are begging us, I mean America and Israel. They're begging us to liberate them. And they are the source of all of the funding for all of the terrorist groups. Iran is currently attacking America in the Gulf. Nobody talks about it. Almost 100 times America has been attacked either by Iran or the Houthis, who are funded by Iran. It's already, this
It's a
conflict has
constant.
already
It's a
spread.
constant state.
This
Yeah.
conflict has already spread. It has started. This is the moment that the world has to get together, the free world, the world of free values, of freedom, get together and say, we're going to act towards regime change in Iran because they are the cause of all of the problems that are killing everybody in different places around the world. And it will get to the West. We're just the first stop on this tour. And so when everybody wakes up to that, that's maybe when we can deal with the Hitler, which is the Iranian Ayatollahs and that regime.
Absolutely. My God, I could not have said that better myself. And for all of the politicians and for all of the pundits, and I know many of them out there who are saying we shouldn't get involved. This is Israel's problem. This isn't our problem. You have failed your history lessons. In my opinion, you have failed miserably because they will be here just like they were on 9/11,
Yeah.
but it will be far greater, far worse. And we won't have any other choice but to be involved. And what kind of people will we be when we don't stand on principle and defend our only ally that stands for Western Judeo-Christian values in the Middle East? The only ally that we have there in all reality. And I know everybody can throw Saudi Arabia, throw this around, but is Israel. That's it. That's it.
We're the only people who share your values, who have a democracy, who believe in the same things. And so, but again, we're fighting this war for everybody else. The minimum we need is the backing to let us finish the job and bring back our hostages. That's all we need to do right now. But let me tell you, this is not over here. Hezbollah is itching for another war with us. They're already attacking, the Iranians are already attacking American targets in the Gulf. The Houthis, funded by Iran. Afghanistan is funded by Iran. Iraq is funded by Iran. Syria is destroyed by Iran. It already doesn't even have its own government anymore. Iran is running the show. Lebanon was already destroyed. They've got all these proxies everywhere, and the world has to wake up. They're amassing their
Do you believe that the Shiite crescent has already spread? And this is why, the only reason why Saudi Arabia really and other nations are like, wait a minute, because they're Sunni, like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe this is the reason why we've got to align ourselves.
Saudi Arabia is interested in signing a defense pact with the US because they understand that Iran threatens them too. So even the Arabs in Saudi Arabia, who were very traditional and whose terrorists committed the 9/11 attacks, right? Even
Right.
they have woken up to the fact that Iran is the Hitler of our time. The whole world
And
has to
on
wake up to it, and we have to get rid of them.
And that's where we were going to end it, because I think we can't say anything more that's more powerful than what you've already said, Fleur. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in Israel.
Sarah,
I
I
look
can't wait to
forward to
have you here.
planning.
I can't wait to have you.
I'm so thrilled. I really look forward to it. Let me know what I can do to help. Where can my listeners go if they want to help Israel now? For all of you out there, I know all of you, so many letters I've received, want to support Israel. How can they do it?
Well, just, first of all, go online. We're so outnumbered by so much hatred online. I can't tell you. If I tell you the things horrible people write to me, and recently my phone number was doxxed and I got attacked by about 5,000 Indonesians who started calling me at all hours of the day or night, don't even ask. So I think go online and support, follow people like me, other spokespeople for the state of Israel, and good news outlets that are telling the truth. And, there's plenty of ways to support Israel.
What's your ex? Do you have an ex? Like a Twitter?
Fleur Hassan, Hassan. So 2 S's, 2 N's. And there's lots of things to support if people want to support financially. There's the Israel Trauma Coalition. There's all sorts of food relief efforts. You just have to do a quick search online. There's so many good causes. But mainly what we need is your moral support, your diplomatic support, your support online, because this is where we're fighting. I'm not a soldier. I don't have a gun, but me and my colleagues, we're fighting the online media battle, and that is ruthless too.
Yep. Not all warriors carry guns. They carry information. They carry food. They carry clothing. They take care of babies. They do everything that you have said. These are the real warriors of a nation, and they support those that are on the front lines of battle. Thank you so much, Fleur. I look forward to having you back on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Fleur, for joining the show today. Your perspective is so important at this critical time for both of our nations. And I look forward to having you back on the show. And I look forward to being in Israel soon with you. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Sarah Carter Show here on your favorite podcast app. It really does help. Follow me on Truth at Sarah Carter Official, on X at Sarah Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our great nation. God bless our ally Israel, that she may flourish and that we can succeed over this evil and this hatred that is coming after all of us. And God bless the great state of Texas.